Hey everyone, Phase 2 is around the corner, and with that, among many other things, comes the new raids, Serpentshrine Cavern and Tempest Keep. And when you say new raids, you also say new loot to obtain. The great thing about TBC, unlike retail, is that when a new patch drops, you don't have to replace all your gear. You'll see throughout this video that a lot of gear from Phase 1 is still biz for many specs and classes. Speaking of specs and classes, in this video we're gonna be focusing on tanks and healers. We've also made a very similar video to this for melees and ranged DPS, which you can check too if you have a DPS or if you're curious what your fellow guildmates will be competing with you on. Although we will also mention when something is shared between you and a DPS in here too. Just like in that first video, we'll talk about the different types of items and discuss what's biz for every class. Weapons, rings, trinkets, and so on. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, starting off with trinkets, as that's usually the hardest piece to obtain, generally of course. Starting off with tanks, you'll see that generally speaking, nothing changes in terms of trinkets. What you had in Phase 1 will still be what you'll be using in Phase 2. The ST is still biz for Feral Druids, the Badge of Justice trinket and Eye of Mechtheridon are still biz for Prot Paladins, and being an engineer and having 2 Goblin rocket launchers is still the best option for a Prot warrior. But there is one interesting exception for Feral Druids, Badge of Tenacity. This is tied to the Ogrilla reputation, but you actually don't have to farm a single point of reputation for Ogrilla to obtain this. You just need to kill mobs around the Ogrilla plateau until the depleted badge drops and then turn it into the actual badge for 50 Apexis shards. Or even more simply, you could just buy it directly from the auction house. It's bind on equip. For healers, it's also very much the same story. Eye of Gruul and the Ribbon from Kara are still biz for priests, the Badge of Justice trinket is still biz for shamans and druids, and the Scarab from Black Morass is also biz for shamans. But there's one new trinket called Earring of Soulful Meditation, for priests only, which is gonna be biz for you. It drops from Lurker below, and it obviously should go straight to priests if it drops. This is quite nice, especially with that on-use effect, which gives 300 spirit for 20 seconds. It's comparable to using a small mana potion, but that's pretty much it on the healer front. You'll generally still be keeping any trinket from Phase 1 that you already have. Moving on to weapons, this is where things start to get more interesting. Starting off with tanks, as a Feral Druid, you have Wild Fury Greatstaff. This drops off the trash in SSC. Not sure how rare this is, but if you're not in a rush, consider joining trash farming groups because this staff is really good. Albeit oriented more towards mitigation, but you'll still be using it even for threat. As a Prot Paladin, you'll want to use Fang of the Leviathan. If you watched our DPS video, you'll know that this is quite a sought after item for a lot of casters. For this reason, if you're your guild's main tank or even off tank, make sure to let the loot console know that this is a big item for you. You'll still be keeping the shield from Gruul to use along with this, by the way. Same thing for warriors. For warriors, by the way, the best weapon to get is Mallet of the Tides, an awesome option for both threat and mitigation. Drops off Lurker below and it should go straight to you, because Prot warriors are the only ones after this weapon really. And then, moving on to healers, basically every healer wants one thing, Light Fathom Scepter. Whether you're a druid, shaman, priest, or paladin, this mace is awesome for you. It drops off Lady Vash, it's quite rare, but this will last you for a very long time. Along with that, druids still use the Badge of Justice offhand, paladins the shield from Mechtheridon, but for priests and shamans, you have Talisman of the Sun King, really good offhand of Alar. It shouldn't be too hard to obtain, and it is a good upgrade from what you previously had. Okay, moving on to necks. We got some good options for everyone here. For Feral Druids, there's a PvP neck called Veteran's Pendant of Triumph. This is really good, but unfortunately, I couldn't tell you what this costs exactly, as Season 2 hasn't started yet, either on the live servers or the PTR. Best case scenario, this only requires honor, and worst case scenario, you'll have to do some arena to buy it, but I really don't think you will. For Prot Paladins, you have the Darkener's Grasp. This is a reward from the Kael'thas quest item, Verdant Sphere, which if you watched our DPS video, you'll know that a lot of classes will be after. So expect some competition before getting this, unless you're the main tank of course. Then, for Prot Warriors, the best neck for both mitigation and threat is Frayed Tether of the Drowned. This drops off Fathom Lord Karathras, and you're literally the only class after this necklace, so it should go straight to you. If you can't get this to drop though, the PvP neck we talked about earlier is also a very good alternative in the meantime. Then, for pretty much every healer, what you're after is Lord Sanguinar's Claim. This is also a neck of the quest from Kael'thas, and at this point 90% of players are after this item, so you should expect a lot of competition for this because this quest gives pretty much everyone's Biz necklace, so expect to be waiting for quite a while before receiving this. But at least the good news is KT always drops one of those, so eventually you will get it too. Moving on to rings. As a feral druid, you'll mostly still be using the same rings, but if you're after a threat option, you'll need to compete with a lot of DPSers for Bend of the Ranger General. This is a really good ring that a lot of melees and hunters will want. Then for Prot Paladins, you have Ring of the Sundered Souls of Morgrim. Good news is you're the only class after this ring, so it should go straight to you. Keep using the blue ring of the quest from Alcatraz as your second ring. And then for Prot Warriors, it gets complicated because a lot of rings are underwhelming at best for Prot Warriors in Phase 2. Shapeshifter Signet and the Violet Eye Ring are still really good options. But if you're good on the hit and defense front of things and you just want to squeeze a bit more threat, there's also Ancestral Ring of Conquest of Lurker Below. This is quite good, but a lot of melees will be competing with you on it. For healers, one really good ring for druids, paladins, and priests is Coral Band of the Revived. This drops off Lady Vash. This isn't as good as the Kazakh ring, to be clear, but very few people can have the chance to kill Kazakh, so this ring is your next best option. Then there's also Phoenix Ring of Rebirth of Alar for Holy Priests. It's not an overwhelming upgrade of what you already saw in the past, but it is worth getting anyways. Okay, moving on to cloaks. For feral druids, you'll still be keeping the good old Terrestrian cloak for mitigation, but if you're after threat, you should aim for a Thalassian Wilder cloak. Keep in mind, however, this is contested by a lot of melees and hunters. It's not very rare according to the many times I killed Kael'thas on retail for the mount, but it is heavily contested, so expect to wait in a long queue for it. Then, for paladins, for both mitigation and threat, you have the Phoenix Wing Cloak of Alar. Quite good and also biz for Prot Warriors if they're after pure mitigation, but warriors are often after hit, so they will be sticking with the Morose Cloak most likely. But yeah, this is a really good cloak for Prot Paladins and Prot Warriors. Get it when you can. As expected for healers, everyone is after the same thing, Sun Shower Light Cloak of Kael'thas, so you should expect a lot of competition for this. That being said, the Cloak of Malchezaar is still a very solid option for everyone, so don't feel bad if it takes you forever to get this cloak. Okay, now let's move on to the main gear. That's the main armor and off pieces. Just like we said for the DPS video, this gets really complicated if we get into the nitty-gritty, so we'll keep it simple. The 2-set bonus of tier 5 is really good for a lot of tanks and healers. Some of you want to push for the 4-set bonus, and priests particularly want to go for the full set bonus because of how good those pieces are for them. Not to mention how awesome they look, so good for them. But what you equip and what you break your set bonus with highly depends on your class and also your gear situation. For this reason, check Wowhead to know what you should equip from tier 5 and what offset pieces you should look for. Sunhawk leggings, for example, is really good for both Holy Paladins and Resto Shamans, for example, so they definitely want to equip that. The engineering goggles are awesome for Prot Warriors, making engineering for them a must-have to get this this and the Goblin rocket launchers we talked about earlier. But yeah, as I said, it's complicated to talk about main pieces, so let's move on to off pieces instead. Belt of 100 Death of Lady Vash is an awesome threat piece for warriors and feral druids, but it is super contested. But you should definitely aim to get that if you can, because it's a really good piece with that expertise on it. But every melee on Earth will make the argument that it shouldn't go to you. Don't listen to them, expertise is really important for you, get it whenever you can. Prot Paladins want Girdle of the Invulnerable of Leothras instead. Good for them for both threat and mitigation, and you're the only ones after it, so do get it if you can. Girdle of the Fallen Star is really good for Holy Paladins and Resto Shamans. It drops off the trash in TK. Girdle of Zaytar is also awesome for Druids of Loot Reaver. And Belt of the Long Road is made with Nether Vortex, so do get this made as soon as you can. Moving on to boots, Veteran Leather Boots for Feral Druids and Veteran Plate Greaves for Prot Warriors is also an awesome piece to get. Again, not sure if this costs honor or arena points, but I'm 90% sure it is honor, so do get it when Season 2 starts. Even if you hate PvP, you will not regret it. Boots of the Resilient is what you're after if you're a Prot Paladin. Drops off Solarian in Tempest Keep. For healers, you have Orca Hide Boots, which are biz for both Resto Shamans and Resto Druids. They drop off Leothras the Blind. Holy Paladins are after Boots of Courage Unending of the trash in SSC, and Priests are after Soul Strider Boots of Fathom Lord Karathras. So there's a good option for everyone when it comes to healing boots and not much overlap. Then for bracers, again you have PvP bracers for warriors and druids, veterans Dragonhide and veterans plate bracers. So this makes 3 PvP pieces you need to get by doing BGs. PvP is pretty much mandatory for you if you want to be a good tank. Prot Paladins have wrist guards of determination of Loot Reaver. Those, by the way, are not an upgrade for warriors at all, because they come with block rating, which is a dead stat for them. So this should go straight to a Paladin. And then finally, healers have Black Fathom warbands for paladins and shamans, drops off Hydros. They are quite solid to have, so do get them when you see them. Then druids have Growed Bands of Remulus, off Lurker Below. This screams druid loot, and indeed they're the only ones after this. And priests are after Wraps of Purification. This drops off Hydros too, just like the paladin and shaman ones. And this marks the end of this video. I tried to cover way more this time around, especially when it comes to off pieces, unlike in the DPS video, but I most certainly forgot some things here and there, so if you think something should have been on this list that I didn't mention, make sure to tell us about it in the comments to benefit everyone. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to give it a like and subscribe to the Classic WoW Curios channel for more content like this. I will see you guys in the next one very soon. Bye for now.